Welcome to Film Detour, a podcast where two longtime film buddies take you down and around the back alleys and side streets of cinema.
With the occasional left-hand turn.
I'm John Napick.
And I'm Bob Mueller. So let's go. John, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's hit it.
So today we're talking about Straight Time, 1978.
Great stuff. Directed by Ulu Grosbard.
Who I thought was a really interesting director. He didn't do a lot.
He didn't. I was surprised to look up some stuff on him, and I was surprised. I thought he did more than that. He did True Confessions with Robert De Niro and Robert Duvall, and he did Falling in Love with De Niro and Meryl Streep.
Yeah. He did theater. He directed American Buffalo by David Mamet, and he did an earlier Dustin Hoffman movie called Who is Harry Kellerman, and why is he saying those terrible things about me?
Yeah, he plays an actor or something?
He's a rock star.
A rock star.
Now, the screenplay is by several people. One of them is almost the subject of the movie, this man called Edward Bunker.
Yeah, it's based on his book, No Beast So Fierce.
And
he's an interesting guy. I mean, he's an ex-con. He was in prison when he wrote the book.
Yeah.
And he has done a variety of writings, from books to screenplays to actually being an actor. He was in one of our favorites, John, Runaway Train.
That's right. For those who are fans, he's Mr. Blue in Reservoir Dogs.
Right.
He's one of the people that get killed in the heist. But he's in a bunch of things, like crime-related movies.
He's a pretty natural actor. He's really, fun to watch.
Yeah.
You believe who he is, probably because he came from that world.
Yeah. I think Straight Time was his first role. Here's an interesting fact. He was a career criminal, like the character in this movie. In 1951, he was the youngest inmate in San Quentin
he was 16,
ever.
16 or something like that?
17.
17.
And then you've heard of Jeffrey Boehm, right?
Yep, absolutely. One of my favorite screenplays was his adaptation of The Dead Zone.
Yeah, it's a great
adaptation.
Yeah, for David Cronenberg, great director.
Absolutely.
And he also did, believe it or not, Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. And another interesting kind of horror film, The Lost Boys.
He got around.
He did. And one other co-writer, Alvin Sargent.
The music is by David Shire. He's been around a long time. He's done a variety of things. He's done one of my all-time favorite soundtracks, The Taking of Pelham 123.
Yes.
Now, you really, honestly can't beat The Taking of Pelham 123 for a soundtrack. One of my all-time favorites.
I was surprised to find out that he did that, because I always thought it was someone like...
I thought it was Lalo Schifrin.
That's who I thought it was.
I honestly, for years, I thought it was Lalo Schifrin.
Yeah.
All the President's Men. The Conversation.
The Conversation, Coppola, yeah, definitely. Right.
He co-wrote the Academy Award-winning song for Norma Ray that Jennifer Warren sang, It Goes Like It Goes, which is a terrific song.
Huh.
And he also did the music for Saturday Night Fever. I know the Bee Gees did a lot of the music and other soul artists, but he did the music for in-between.
Like interstitial music.
Right, transitional music and whatnot.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. Another 70s and 80s icon for me, the cinematographer, Owen Reutemann.
Oh, my God.
I mean, every film we've loved in the 70s, it seems like he did, starting with The French Connection.
Absolutely. Network.
The
Exorcist.
Taking of
Pelham 123.
Pelham. 3 Days of the Condor.
I love 3 Days of the Condor. Mm-hmm. He did True Confessions. He did The Stepford Wives, The Electric Horseman, and he also did The Heartbreak Kid.
Right.
I love that movie. Very funny. Elaine May directed it.
Oh,
Sybil
right.
Shepherd.
Yeah, and Charles Grodin.
Right.
But what's interesting about this cinematographer, Owen Reutemann, is he does a lot of different styles. I really love, and it's in this movie too, his kind of, you see it in French Connection, it's almost like a documentary style.
Yeah, it's
very naturalistic.
Really naturalistic. And one of the scenes I remember from The Exorcist, I know there are a lot of special effects and whatnot, but there's a scene, very subtle, down the basement. Yeah. And it's kind of lit by one bulb.
Yeah.
And it feels really natural. Yeah. It's really great stuff.
And the reason for me that film is so scary is it seems so real, because it looks real. It doesn't look like it's lit as a horror film.
Right.
But he also did things like Tootsie, which is kind of big movies.
Big time movie, right.
Yeah. So, and I want to call out one other person. The two editors on this were Sam Osteen and Randy Roberts. But Sam Osteen is, again, one of those editors who's done practically every movie you could think of in the 70s, starting with, in the 60s, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. He also did Cool Hand Luke.
Wow. One of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah. The Graduate.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Rosemary's Baby.
This guy was a cutting fool.
And Chinatown.
Really? You're kidding me.
He did a lot of movies. That's just a few.
Holy cow. This was a First Artists production. And First Artists was started by Paul Newman, Barbra Streisand, and Sidney Poitier. And they started in 1969.
Right.
And in 1971, Steve McQueen came in as a partner. And in 1976, Dustin Hoffman came in. So that's why this ended up becoming a First Artist thing. The interesting thing is it's part of Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And they basically said, you can do whatever you want if you do it for about $3 million plus.
Right.
Maximum.
Right. Which back then was a pretty good chunk of money
for
a film.
For Warner
but
Brothers, they said,
budget.
you can do what you want. You're enough star power.
Right.
You have the clout, but you got to keep it within that budget. So when you look at Straight Time, it doesn't look like a low budget film, but it's tight.
Yeah.
And it's not flashy, and it doesn't have a whole bunch of stuff going on. It's really,
which adds to for me, the quality of the film. Again, this film has a kind of very natural documentary-like feel, and it works for the story, which we will get into right now. I mean, starring Dustin Hoffman, which I have to say, of all the Dustin Hoffman films, this is like one of the top, I'll say 3 for me. I
absolutely.
love his.
It's the most unusual role I've ever seen him in, aside from maybe Straw Dogs.
Yeah.
But he's so different in this. He's almost unrecognizable in a lot of ways.
He's like a real person in this.
He's got this temper that you can't believe, and you don't normally see Dustin Hoffman in that way. You know, that really horrific temper.
I think he was coming off of Marathon Man, which is a great movie, but it's kind of an action film. It's a big movie. And you see him, he just looks like some regular Joe. He's got long hair, he's a little scruffy.
Mustache.
It's a great role for him, and he's so real, and he really takes over this role. You just feel this is the guy. You don't see Dustin Hoffman. Well, let's just talk about the films he was in prior to this movie, since he's done so many.
Oh, my God.
So, like, his earlier film was what?
Well, obviously The Graduate, we know that. He also did Straw Dogs with Peckinpah.
Yep.
He did Papillon with Steve McQueen. Little Big Man, directed by Arthur Penn.
And, of course...
All the President's Men.
And I'm Walking Here.
Midnight Cowboy.
With John Voight.
Good old Ratso.
So, yeah, and leading up to, as I said, Marathon Man, which went right into this film. So, I mean, he's had a long career after that, obviously, but what a start, right? His first 10 years, wow.
Also starring Theresa Russell, the beautiful Theresa Russell. She was about 21 years old. Her first movie was The Last Tycoon with De Niro.
Right. She looks like she's right off the bus in this movie. She's
so natural,
so fresh.
She looks natural. She's a classic 1970s blonde, hair part in the middle, but she just has the ivory girl look. She looks beautiful, and she does an incredible job in this. Very naturalistic acting. She did a lot of different stuff for her husband to be, Nicholas Roeg. She did Bad Timing, A Sensual Obsession,
which is it's a really crazy movie.
It's a really weird movie with Art Garfunkel starring in it, in a very strange role for Artie. Another movie, Insignificance, a section of Aria, where they had all the different directors do those different...
And did she do Black Widow?
She did Black Widow also, yeah.
Right.
That was one of the few things that Nicholas Roeg didn't direct. We got Gary Busey.
Gary Busey.
I dug up a couple bits on him, and he had a bit part in, get this, John, in 1968, he had a bit part in Wild in the Streets.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He was also in The Execution of Private Slovak.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I always think of Martin Sheen as the first thing I think of.
Yeah.
But he's in that too.
And, of course, the Buddy Holly story.
He's great in that. And he does his own singing. I mean, I love him in that. He's terrific.
Well, he was a drummer in some bands, something called the Rubber Band.
Oh, really?
And
well, he's a drummer. He's technically a drummer in this movie.
He is. He's got a drum set in the garage.
Drum set in the garage. He's going to break it out.
He's a wannabe drummer in the movie, but he did play on some Leon Russell recordings. And then, of course, the great
Harry Dean Stanton.
Oh, my God. Bless his soul.
He goes pretty far back too, John.
I mean, it's too much to list.
No, I can't list all his movies, but I'm just going to throw some stuff at you, and you can cut me off anytime you want. He did Adventures of Rin Tin Tin, The Rifleman, Alfred Hitchcock Presents,
lots of TV,
The Untouchables, Adam 12.
In a future episode, we'll talk about a Western he was in, Ride in the Whirlwind.
Yes, he's terrific in that. Very early movie role for him.
And
Cool Hand Luke,
The Godfather Part 2,
Missouri Breaks.
Alien, of course.
Alien.
That was kind of a breakout role for him as a star, I think.
Paris, Texas.
Paris, Texas. What a great movie.
Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah.
That's actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie with that he's in. He's basically just giving, Jesus some shit.
He's just a guy.
Right.
He's a guy in the Christ story.
Yes. He's also one of your favorites, John, Dillinger.
Oh, right.
And he's in Wise Blood. Really a workhorse like no other.
And he was in Big Love. He's the leader of one of the Mormon clans in Big Love. Okay, and
last but not least, certainly not least,
yeah,
Emmett Walsh,
or as we call him, M.
Personal relationship with him. He goes.
Okay, this guy. I just have to say before we're not going to do the whole list because it literally is over 100 things. It must be. I'm
going to throw out some stuff, and you throw out some stuff, and we'll see if we meet in the middle somewhere.
All right.
Little Big Man.
You do movies. I'll do TV.
Okay, fine.
So Little Big Man.
He was Little Big Man.
All in the Family.
He was in the movie Cold Turkey.
And Ironside.
He was in Serpico.
Bonanza.
Slapshot.
That was the Italian version.
That was the Italian version. Bonanza. He was in Slapshot.
The Bob Newhart Show.
He was in The Jerk.
The Rockford Files.
He was in Ordinary People.
Beretta.
Reds.
Okay, I'm out.
Blade Runner, Silkwood, Blood Simple, and Critters of all movies.
Right. A lot of people, I think, will remember him from Blood Simple because they had such a big role in
that.
And that was kind of a breakout, too, in a way.
Yeah, but
I mean, he's always been a great actor.
I think they custom wrote that for him.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah, it was a perfect role for him.
Yeah.
He plays a great son of a bitch.
And we'll in this movie, it's a custom role. It's
Absolutely.
a perfect movie for him.
Absolutely.
And, of course, there's one other person in this, a very young Cathy Bates.
She's young. She looks very natural. Her acting is terrific, and she's very skinny in this.
Yeah.
She's almost unrecognizable how we came to know her later in life.
She must be like under 25, I guess.
Yes.
Or maybe around that. Who knows? But yeah,
she looks like she just walked in off the street, and she's so natural. She's really great.
Yeah.
I really love the opening. You have this wide shot of the prison, and this blue pickup truck pulls up and around and into frame. And then we see cuts of people waiting to pick up whoever they're going to pick up in the prison.
And it's real people.
Yeah, that's the neat thing about it. It is real people.
Yeah, they look like they're just real extras.
There's no way they got them in casting or anything because they look like real people, for sure.
Yeah, it kind of sets the tone for the whole movie because right away you think, okay, this thing looks authentic.
You have this woman with a kerchief on her head.
Yeah.
And she has these cat sunglasses, and her breath is steaming up the closed window in her car as she waits there for whoever she's waiting for. And then the Spanish family, I love.
Yeah, like the Mexican
you got the mother,
family.
and you got two boys, waiting outside for their.
Looks like their father coming out with.
And what I love is just the older boy standing there, and he's just zipping his jacket up and down because he's bored. He has nothing else to do, so he's entertaining himself with that.
And here they come out, the prisoners, whoever's being released that day, and you see the Mexican father.
You see three different guys.
Yeah. And amongst them, you would never recognize him as who?
It's Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
He's the first one in line, and he just has this presence about him. His eyes have this really cold, hard, kind of a dead quality to them. This is not Benjamin Braddock. Yeah. This is a totally different Dustin Hoffman than we've ever seen.
Cut to him on a Greyhound bus at night. He's in the big city, which we learn is L.A. And again, he gets out. He's walking around. Same
I love
kind
the music.
Of feel.
I love the David Shire music.
Soon as he gets off the bus, that's when the music actually begins.
Right. It's great. It's a great piece. It's a really jazzy piece by David Shire, and it gives you this feeling of what now? As he's walking around the city, they cut from location to location. He stops at the hot dog stand.
The whole scene has a Robert Frank feel because just the faces,
right?
As you said, at the hot dog stand.
I'm not sure who was sitting in the background there. It could have been a guy. It could have been a girl.
I think it was a woman. I know you're saying the lady in pink. She had like pink bow in her hair.
Strange-looking person.
Just an odd-looking character sitting
full
at
cover
the counter
white
of
makeup.
a hot dog stand, and Dustin Hoffman's getting a hot dog.
Well, what's neat about this scene for me is he comes up to the hot dog stand. He's just standing there. He doesn't quite know what to do. I mean, it's been a long time since he's ever had to make a decision for himself. So the guy comes up to him and says, what do you want? I'll have a hot dog. And he says, you want everything on it? And he goes, yeah. There's no real thought process. Yeah, just give me whatever you got. He takes the hot dog. And it's not stealing it. He's just not used to this whole thing. And he even seems to have trouble handling the money.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really fascinating because he's not dealt with money for years.
Right.
He's not dealt with, going up and buying something for years. So it's really awkward.
That's an important thing. Like he does step away, as you said, and he forgets to even pay. Like he's not used to that.
There's one thing he does do, John, that you never do to a hot dog. You put mustard on a hot dog.
He put ketchup
you put
on?
Ketchup on the hot dog.
I noticed that.
Right away, he's got to be out of sorts. 65 cents for a hot dog with everything on it. Can you beat that?
He's walking around, and then he gets to this payphone.
Right.
He says his name,
Max Dembo.
Max Dembo. And we learn he's calling his parole officer. He's right off the bus. He's got to kind of report right away.
Earl Frank.
Yes, Earl Frank. And, of course, no, it's an answering service, so he leaves a message, which is odd, I thought. Like, wow, you're just off the bus and you have to make this call. I guess you got to say, I'm in town.
They want to know where you're at right away.
All the time.
I mean, constantly, under surveillance.
Yeah. So the next day, the bus pulls up. He's on some kind of highway, and this old couple, again, real extras, waiting for the bus to get on. He gets off, and we find out he's going where?
To the parole office.
It says California Department of Corrections. And what's funny is he gets off the bus, he's looking around.
It's a mall.
It's like a strip mall or something.
It's an actual mall.
It's an actual mall.
And I'm thinking, is it inside the mall or something?
Yeah. Well, that's California, right?
Yeah.
And you must think, like, how far did he have to go on this bus to get here? He's looking around like, has he ever seen a mall? I don't know.
Right. He seems disoriented to the max.
Yeah.
He really does. And his parole officer is played by M. Emmett Walsh brilliantly.
Yes.
He plays the best son of a bitch you're ever going to want to see.
Well, right away, as soon as he shows up, Emmett Walsh just starts grilling him.
Well, he says,
You're late.
You're late.
You're late.
So right away, I feel uncomfortable because I know this is a bad opening for this guy, and the guy is going to be a ball breaker.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever been to L.A., but, bus rides are freaking long. It's a huge city, and they don't come often, so of course he's late. He's got to get there by public transportation.
Yes.
And then he asks him, like, where did you stay last night? What
did you do last night?
What'd you do last night? Oh, I walked around, I got a hot dog, and I...
Did you meet anybody?
He's already grilling him. All these 1,500 questions, and of
course... Where'd you stay? You didn't show up.
Where'd you stay? You didn't show up.
At the halfway house.
He goes, I stayed at a hotel. He goes, why'd you do that? You're supposed to be at the halfway house. Already, he's like right on him. And Max is like, I just wanted to see the sights. It was my first night out.
But he makes him so uncomfortable. He made me feel uncomfortable.
He puts him on the defensive.
I mean, I felt like I was sitting in the chair, listening to this. So Dustin Hoffman says, I called you when I got in. Didn't you get the message? Called here?
He goes, no, I got the,
I left a message with your
answering
service.
And of course he didn't get the message,
And he goes, didn't get it. Yeah. And Dustin Hoffman has to add, I left it.
Yeah. And of course, Frank is right away, Max, I think you have a serious attitude problem.
Right.
Like, what? What? I'm just telling you what I was doing. And you see Dustin Hoffman go, okay, this is how it's going to be.
Right.
You see it on his face. It's like, this is how it's going to be. And he's a proud guy. You could just see it, his bearing. He's going to have to kowtow to this guy, and he has to apologize.
This guy's going to bend him to his will, and that's it. There's no difference. And you see the pleasure he takes in it. And it's also interesting, there are a variety of things in the office, which I thought was neat. There's a poster on the wall, and I remember seeing this in my psychology class a million years ago in high school. And it's just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
But what's sad is you see Max, he doesn't really want to give in to this guy, but eventually you see in his head, he's like, okay, I'm going to have to apologize because he's just not going to let me go.
What's interesting is he says, I don't have an attitude problem.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, yeah, you do, Max. So he says, all right, look, what attitude do you want me to have?
Right.
And he means it because he's just going to play whatever game this guy wants to do it so he can get on with his life.
And he says,
he's really trying.
It was my first night out. He goes, I'm sorry. And that just cost him so much.
Killed him.
Yeah. And then cut to the next day, we see him walking the streets and he finds this rooming house, the Garland Hotel.
Right.
Which classic LA kind of rooming house. It's huge. It looks like a private house, but it's huge. And you get in there.
Yeah.
And
it looks very LA. It looks something like a Marlowe or something.
Bukowski. Charles Bukowski could be down the hall there.
Writing poetry.
And he gets there and is like he's walking through the hall, the lady showing him to the room, and there's little Mexican kids playing. And so there's like clearly there's all different types of people here.
But it's a very low rent place.
Oh, yeah. He gets in and the lady opens the door. And he's like, no sheets? There's no sheets on this mattress.
And she goes, no.
No.
So he's out of luck. He's going to have to buy some sheets in addition to this. But he makes the deal with M. Emmett Walsh that he can stay in a place like this if he calls him, tells him he has the place, he'll come by and visit him and stuff, and he has to have a job by the end of the week.
He has to get a job by the end of the week.
He's really pressing him here.
Yeah.
So he goes to an employment agency.
He just cut, and he's right there.
Yeah. We see him typing away.
Yeah.
And he's doing kind of a hunt and peck. Well, not a hunt and peck. He's got his hands going, moving and whatnot. And
I thought he was doing pretty good for an act. Maybe he learned in jail.
It's very possible. Maybe that's Bunker writing the story or something.
Yeah.
That's how you learn how to type. But we hear a buzzer go off.
Yeah.
And we see this young girl come up and say, time. And he's not paying attention.
Right.
And she says, time.
I think he's paying attention. He's just trying to get more words in because clearly it's some kind of a test.
Right. Well, he's like he has selective hearing like a dog does.
He has very selective hearing.
So he doesn't want to hear that.
Like people I know.
He has a way of doing. Is that a dig, John?
No.
We have a way of he has a way of doing something, and he wants to get through this thing that he wants to do. And the girl keeps saying time.
Yeah.
Finally, she walks over and she just takes the piece of paper,
rips it out. And this is Jenny, played by
Theresa Russell, and she's very warm to him, and you could just tell that he's not used to this sort of thing.
Right. It's like the first person who just treats him like a real person. You know what I mean? She looks right into his eyes, and you could tell she's young and she's new at this job. So maybe she's not bitter or anything.
Right.
She's just generally concerned, asking him questions, and he has to finally admit that he's just out of the jail.
Yeah. Which, she just kind of smiles at that. She doesn't get all freaked out and bent out of shape.
I mean,
and it's the first time we see Dustin Hoffman smile.
Yeah.
The first time. And it comes from her warmth.
I mean, it's a great little line. He's like, all I want to do is get a job. I need a fucking job.
Right.
I mean, he sees she's real.
Right.
So he's like brutally honest.
He just kind of lets it out.
Yeah. No, because she's safe in a way. You know what I mean? Like, she's not like Frank, who's busting his balls. She's like, treating him like a
human being,
person.
but she has warmth, and that's not always what you get when you go into an employment agency. That's for sure.
And it's funny. He's like, I'm not allowed to drive. I can't handle money like in a job, like in a bank, due to parole. I mean, there's only so many things he can do. Okay,
he looks so vulnerable with her.
Yeah,
and he's kind of fidgeting around and whatnot, and at the same time he's flirting with her. And he actually has the balls to ask her to dinner.
Yes.
It's really pretty fast worker.
He goes back to the rooming house.
And he gets on the payphone.
Yeah.
He makes a phone call to his old friend Willie.
And he's like, tell the big bear I want to give him a big bear hug. Clearly someone he knows from prison. And this is Willie, played by
Gary Busey.
Busey.
You know what? He's such a natural actor. He's so authentic in this role. You totally believe he's this guy. I mean, not for a second do you feel like he's acting.
Right. He calls, come get me. And Willie comes, he pulls up in this big old 70s station wagon.
Right.
And he's young, right? He just feels young in the movie. He feels like green, young. He's like a big kid, right?
That's a really good way of putting it.
He's a big, gluten kid. And they go back to the house, and it's this little ramshackle house with the garage in the back.
Right.
And there's his wife, Selma, played by Cathy Bates.
She has a real spark to her.
Yeah. And they're having dinner. Cut to them having dinner, which is a really nice little scene. Like Max is like back against the wall. He's drinking coffee. They've eaten.
And he's sitting next to the little boy.
Yeah.
Willie's little boy. And it absolutely looks like Gary Busey. And there's a reason for that. Because that's his son,
I was wondering.
Jacob.
He's Henry in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of poignant because you could just see that. And you can actually see Max watching them.
Right.
Like, be a family. This is like a really domestic scene he's not been in.
Right.
Maybe even in his home life he's never been in this situation. And he's just watching. He's almost like kind of happy watching them be.
Yeah,
this
he's really
little
happy to see the
family.
whole thing, the interactivity. Yeah.
So Willie takes the boy to bed, and there's a really interesting scene with Max and Selma.
A lot of tension. You can feel there's a lot of unspoken tension in the room. Max is not picking up on it. He's just kind of talking and whatnot, and then Cathy Bates tells him that this is not a good idea to be here. In fact, you're really going against your parole by being here with him. So I really would like it better if you don't.
She kind of says
around.
It's like bad timing.
Yeah.
Because, Willie has to be on the straight and narrow.
Right.
And Max just gets it. He just kind of gets his jacket. He starts to leave. And she says something funny. She's like,
You're making me feel bad.
You're making me feel bad. He's like, you're doing what you have to do. It's cool, he actually says.
But it's not. It's not fully cool to him. He's just covering with it. He's really hurt.
Yeah.
Because he just wants to get on with his life and have a life and be connected to something more than, old inmates.
But I have to say, they don't treat Selma as the nagging wife.
No, not at all.
You're kind of siding with her in a way. Because
you have to side with her.
She's trying to keep her family together, and this guy is
and as
an
you
ex-con.
said, Gary Busey's like a little boy.
Yeah.
So he needs to be kind of led and kept on the straight.
And there may be something about Max she knows that we'll soon learn. It's just... So, funny enough, cut to Willie driving Max home.
Right.
I'm like, I guess she let him do that. And he's carrying this huge plywood.
Huge piece of plywood, grease marks all over it, and he humps it all the way upstairs, and he's going to shore up the bed. Because, if you've ever had a bed that's really a disaster, the quickest fix is put a piece of plywood under
the
it.
box spring on there just is like these beat-up springs.
Yeah, and it's going to be,
mattress.
sagging down, so forget it. So he it's a nice thing he does. He humps that thing all the way up. So he puts the plywood underneath and gets it set. He's starting to put together some works for a fix for himself.
Shooting up. Yeah. He starts to, it's like, what the fuck?
And Max says, do you know I can get 3 years for that?
Well, it's interesting. He looks at him, and right away you see Max just, boom, he gets really serious.
So he goes over and just locks the door. He doesn't want to tell the guy no, which is actually pretty interesting. I think if I was him, I'd go, get the fuck out of my room.
Yeah.
You're killing me. But he lets him do it anyway.
But it's interesting. That's the dynamic. It's like Max, the consummate pro, goes right to the door, locks it. Willie, just out there in the wind.
Yeah. He would have left the door open.
Oblivious.
He's absolutely oblivious.
And the scene, there's a nice shot at the end of that scene where Max goes to the mirror and he's looking in the mirror. He's just really serious. And in the background, you see Willie shooting up. Right. There's just some really nice candlelight. And you can just see how Max is affected by it.
Well, it's bad news for him.
Yeah, I mean, geez, I'm out not even 2 days,
All he needs is the parole officer to show up.
So we cut to them and they're on their date. They're in this, he wants to get a steak, he says, right? So suddenly they're in this restaurant. Right. They're eating.
It's a very interesting dinner conversation. The soundtrack's going, you can hear their voices, and they're panning over to the dinner time conversation. And he's basically telling her what life is like in prison, and that you could be killed with the back of a spoon or a sharpened toothbrush. Or you could have somebody just throw a can of gas in, another guy comes by, throws a match in. It's not exactly the best dinner conversation, but he's a little awkward with it, but she still seems to have something for him. She gets something from him. She gets a kick out of him somehow.
This guy, again, he's just institutionalized his whole life. And he's like, some guys thinks it's scarier being out here.
Some cons, from what I've read before or have seen in documentaries, they basically end up going back, even committing a stupid crime to go back, because there's too much out there. It's too much stimuli. There are too many choices to make. Yeah. It's easier to go back and just have everybody just kind of lay it out for you.
Well, it's interesting. She's like, well, why? And he's like, because out here, it's what you got in your pocket that matters.
Right.
On the inside, it's only what you are. You know what I mean? Like, which up until this point in the film, you can feel that. Like, if you don't have any money on you, you don't have a real job, you're nothing.
Well, speaking of money, he doesn't have enough money to pay the check.
The check comes, and he's like looking in his pockets.
I've had that happen before. I'm kind of thinking, okay, I have a girl on a date. Do I have all the money for me now? Oh, thank God I do, but he doesn't.
Well, I was trying to do the math before that. I'm like, wait, did he even get paid yet? No, he just started his job, and he's taking her out. Well,
he had money from the
parole office,
right?
Yeah.
So he did have some money in his pocket, but I don't think he added it up too well. When he looked at the menu, so he doesn't have enough money. So So she looks at him and says, "You got to be kidding me! You don't have enough money." So she said, "All right."
Hey, what about women's lib here, huh? Why does he have to pay the whole bill?
It's the way it was still done back in the 70s, John. So she helps him out.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Could you just help me out a little bit by giving me the money under the table so he doesn't look like a schmuck?"
Right, he has to put
And you
it
have
on
this,
the table.
their two hands touch, and there's a real connection.
Yeah, he grabs
She
it.
seems a little awkward by it.
I have to say, you do see in her a real attraction to this guy. And it's not because he's a criminal.
No,
or anything.
there's
He's
not
just-
that. That's
it's
sort of
just-
like, he's a bad boy, and I'm really.
I mean, she can sense he's like a smart guy.
There's something so vulnerable in him. I
Yeah,
think that really.
true.
So he's on his way home after work, and he's got a spring in his step. He's just thrilled to death.
You see him the next day.
He's got this girl. Everything's peachy keen. He's just got a spring in his step. And, the world is great. Life is great. And then he gets to his door, and it's open.
Dun, 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 dun.
Right. And it's good old M. Emmett Walsh, the parole officer,
Snooping around his room.
walking around, poking around.
Yeah. Like, what? What are you doing here?
He plays the classic smarmy douchebag.
So Max comes into the room,
Right.
and you can see he was coming home to get ready.
Right.
And he's like, I can talk to you, but I have somewhere to be. And Frank's like, what? You got a date? And he's like, yeah. And what is his reply?
She white?
What? Is she white?
He thinks it's funny. Everything's funny to him. He's such a dick.
What a shitty
He's always
thing.
telling off color.
Yeah.
Or racist.
Racist, what do you
He's
call
a real Archie Bunker son of a bitch.
Yeah, what do you call ethnic jokes?
Right.
But also it's a way to needle this guy. You know what I mean? He's never has a normal conversation. There's always like some kind of needling going on.
He has power over Max.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He really likes it.
Yeah.
You can see he likes it.
He's kind of two-handed. The other hand, he's kind of tries to be palsy with him.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about it.
It's like, what? You're trying to be this normal guy? And
Like nudge, nudge when he makes
Yeah.
a joke in the ribs. Come on, give me a break.
So Max is telling him about his job. Everything's peachy with him. And he's getting dressed. Max is trying to get ready to go out on this date again. He starts putting on his shoes.
And Mr. Snoopy M. Emmett Walsh finds something under the bed.
Of course.
A whole pack of matches burned up.
We know what it's from.
Right.
And
And so does M. Emmett Walsh.
And he's like, automatically, take off your shirt.
And he treats him like a bad child.
Yeah.
I mean, he completely strips him of any dignity whatsoever.
And he's like, he tells him, take off your shirt. I'm going to check you for track marks. And he starts to tell a Polish joke.
Right.
Like, what? Like, again, he's stabbing you with one hand. He's trying to be friends with the other. And Max is like, I'm not high. I don't shoot up, whatever.
Check my eyes.
Check my eyes right away.
Yeah.
Check my eyes. He keeps saying it. Check my eyes. You can tell.
But he's checking for tracks. He's checking in between fingers, every place possible on his arms. So he makes the Polak joke.
Yeah.
I'm doing the Archie Bunker, but he makes the Polak joke, and then he like he's being palsy-walsy with him. Then he grabs his wrist, slaps a cuff on him in the next breath, and then cuffs him to the bed.
It's like a steel frame bed. Just
totally humiliating him, treating him like an animal.
And you can see Max right away. He kind of not like he almost snaps. It's like, what do you like? He's in prison again.
Yeah.
Like, why do you got to do this? What are you doing?
And there's a little kid in the hallway just watching this whole thing take place.
And Frank is like, I'm just doing my job. Yeah, to him, it's like an everyday thing.
If you're clean, there's no problem.
Right.
I just got to make a phone call, and we're going to take you downtown. We're going to check you out.
But automatically assuming the worst, and he goes out into the hall to make this call. He's going to call downtown.
Right.
And as you said, he's poor Dustin Hoffman just sitting on this bed, chained to it, and this little Mexican girl in the doorway just like looking at him. And
we're just playing a game. That's what he says.
But you could see he feels so like
totally
embarrassed,
humiliated. And the thing that sucks in this situation for this guy Max is he hasn't done anything. He's actually he's honestly trying to rebuild his life.
He is
just trying to be a human being. That's all. And guilty or not, he's taking him down to prison. Period.
Well, surprisingly, because you cut to the county jail. And right away, he's like, you see Max and this herd of prisoners.
Horrible. Like cattle, John.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, again, about this scene, it's documentary-like quality. It's like you're
real
there.
Inmates. Has to be real inmates,
It's
John.
real inmates. He's in line, and they're going to show you the processing.
Like animals in a pen, right?
Like all the different steps of processing to get, to intake these prisoners.
But if you ever see them running, say cattle through some pens, and then you get to a certain section where they spray them down for lice.
But first it's like run your fingers through your hair, all together now, and you see Max knows the routine. He just like automatically complies. He's just like, it's almost like everyday business. Like, okay.
I like the one guy with the big afro. And he's, kind of putting his fingers through his hair. Yeah. And the guy goes, "Is that a wig?" And he shakes his head. Yeah. Take that off.
And then as you said, they get naked and in line, going around, almost like a concentration camp, goddamn.
Well,
in the shower.
A good way of putting it. Mm-hmm.
In line, one at a time. The guy's just spraying them up and down to delouse them.
How can anybody survive like that? Being treated that way.
Yeah.
And then you get out of prison. How can you possibly act like a human being again? I just can't.
And you just have to say, how many days do you think he's been out of prison before this moment? 3, 4?
3, 4 max.
And here he is, fucking right back
again.
So they get him to his cell, and Max, the professional prisoner, there's an old guy in front of him going for the bunk on the bottom. Max like, that's my bed. That one's mine, partner.
He's going to have at least the bed he wants.
But like, only if you've been there do you know. You got to get your thing right away. Right. And you just see him settle in, his back against the bars, and he's just like, he's been here. And you just see him settle in. It's just like a caged animal. Yeah.
Like a caged animal, exactly. And then the scene comes up where Jenny comes to visit him in prison.
Right.
Which is a very awkward scene. She's just trying to be there for him and talk to him and make him feel better.
And there's just to set the scene, there's like this glass between them, the classic glass between them.
You got to talk
on
the
phone.
And she's just trying to make him feel
just being
better.
Nice, yeah.
Right. She said, I called and they said you were arrested, so I came down and whatnot.
And like, what a girl. She comes down to the jail to
check
see
on
him. Like, not like this guy's trouble, I'm dumping him.
Right. Because she sees something in him. That's how I feel. She sees something deeper in him, a sensitivity that she seems to be able to bring out.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because he stands there completely immobile.
You can see he's turned off. Almost like emotionally, he's just turned off.
Like he flipped a switch, exactly. Yeah. And he's just standing there, and she's trying to be so nice. I felt bad for her because no matter what she does.
Yeah, he's not engaging. He's just, and it's almost like, you know why he's doing it. He's just pushing her away because it's just like he doesn't want to be in this position.
I absolutely believe that because he doesn't want to be in that position of her on this side of the glass.
Having to see him like that.
Right. He's humiliated. The last second thing, she writes her phone number down. She writes it down on a piece of paper and she puts it up so he can see
glass.
it. And he just says, "I got to go." And you figure, all right, well, that's the end of that. He doesn't even care about her anymore. He's just got to cut himself off. And the first thing he does when he goes back to his bunk is he grabs a pack of Camels that he's got, and he rips it open. He starts writing that number down. I'm not going to forget the number. I'm not going to forget
I was wondering if he was going to remember it.
Like,
and he had to get back to that cell.
Right.
And then we see some time has passed. He's got like this scruffy beard. He's in the jail. And then Frank comes.
Good old Frank.
And he's kind of sheepish. Your urine test was clean.
like he's disappointed or something.
He makes a half-ass excuse for taking so long.
Yeah, I couldn't get down here. I was really busy a week. This guy's in prison. You had a really busy week.
He's probably in there a week, right?
Yeah, it's got to be.
He wasn't that busy. He could have did it, but it was like, not today, maybe tomorrow. He just left this guy sitting there.
Right.
And Max is like, what, the phones break down?
Don't get sarcastic with me. Right away, the guy says.
And then Frank is like, I'm going to take you to a halfway house.
So, they're in the car and they're driving to...
They're on the highway.
They're driving to the halfway house. And M. Emmett Walsh, as the parole officer, is such a dick. I can't say that enough. He's like their pals or something.
Yeah,
he was like
he's just
telling
like
him,
being friendly.
Boy, did I have a week this week. Yeah. You can't believe it. This guy was just thrown in jail by you, and you've had a week.
He's had a hard week.
I was missing my little girl's play. I'll tell you, my wife was so pissed off, I thought she was going to divorce me.
Yeah. And Max is just giving him little answers. He's not, you can tell he's not engaged, but he's just kind of,
And the radio's on, and the next thing we see is he's listening to the sports update, and he goes, shit, I had $10 on that game, and he clicks it off. He's just all over the place. It's all about him.
And then he starts asking about, well, who is that?
Come on, Max. Come on. I'm not gonna do anything. You know,
I've just butted you up with this excellent conversation. Now you're going to tell me who shot up in your room?
We're boys.
And Max is like, you know, I can't tell you that. We both know someone shot up in that room. I can't tell you that. You just know. You know what I mean?
But he keeps needling him.
Yeah.
And pushing him and needling him. Come on, Max. Come on. Just off the record.
Like off the it's
you
gonna
can tell me
if it's off the record. So if I tell you now, it's off the record. Sure.
And he
Frank.
keeps pushing it and pushing it. Finally, Max snaps.
Yep.
And he punches him while he's driving on the highway.
On the highway.
This scene is amazing. He just boom, 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 boom. He's punching him in the face.
Yeah.
He rips his glasses off, and then he jabs him right back in. He says, "You busted me for nothing." And I always remember that line because he takes his elbow and he smashes him right in the face.
And he calls him, "You punk motherfucker."
and he's holding the wheel while the parole officer's sitting in the driver's seat, and they're swerving all over the place.
And this guy, Frank, is just scared shitless. He even lets out a little scream, you know. Like
but he beats the shit out of him. He looks totally disoriented. So they're driving and swerving all over the place, and finally he pulls the car over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really brutal scene because and it's a scary scene because you're thinking, my guy's going to crash into somebody else. You don't know what the hell's going to happen, and just how much anger you have to be beating the shit out of the driver.
I was thinking, Max, why there in the middle of the highway? He just couldn't handle himself.
He couldn't take it anymore. He was just needled by this guy
for the
enough.
rest stop or something.
So he pulls the car over. Max pulls the car over. He gets out. He rips Emmett Walsh out, and he cuffs him.
He drags him. Literally. The guy's like half on the floor. He literally drags him to this fence on the side of the highway.
He cuts one hand to it, and then
high up on the fence.
So he's really almost tippy-toed. And to add insult to injury, he pulls down his pants. Just to add a little something extra to it. And he's standing there with his pants down.
Cars driving by,
beeping their horns like they're having a great time watching them.
Screaming out.
He says, "Stop! Stop!" And every time he puts his hand up to say stop, he
has to hold. He's trying to hold pull his pants back up.
He's trying to put his hand over his privates.
His ass is hanging out there
in the wind. It's great. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Right. But also, from this moment on, you know, like, as soon as you do that, Max in his head knows his straight life is over. It's just, you know, whatever happens next, you know, it's done.
He had to do that.
Yeah.
He just couldn't take it anymore.
And then one of my favorite scenes, we cut to the poolside.
Harry Dean Stanton.
In the backyard, somewhere in the valley.
The outfit, John.
The outfit. So it's Harry Dean Stanton and his wife, Carol.
Right. Harry Dean Stanton walks toward the camera with Max. And he's talking about, you know, what he's been up to and what she's kind of, you know, taking him.
They're having like a barbecue in the back by the pool.
By the pool.
At this little table.
Harry Dean Stanton looks like he's doing okay for himself.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a painting contracting business or something.
Jerry Shue is his name.
That's right.
We'll call him Jerry.
and I love the outfit. I mean, it sets up everything about this guy. He's got a Hawaiian shirt on, Bermuda shorts. He's got white socks and black flip-flops. It's perfect.
Well, he's like living the suburban dream. It's like, and he even says, like, Carol straightened me out. His wife. He's married to this woman. And then Carol, you could tell she's totally used to these guys or convicts.
Right.
Because she starts going off in this litany of her ex-husbands who were convicts. And
the scene's so natural, though, John.
But it's great because she treats Max as normal because she knows this life.
So she's not freaked out about that sort of thing.
Right.
But my God, Harry Dean Stanton, such a natural actor. He's such a
so
natural
great in this
actor.
role. This is one of my favorite Harry Dean Stanton
You believe
roles.
who he is instantly, and he's hardly doing anything.
Just like it's a middle-aged career criminal, like whatever. It's just perfect role for him.
I love the way she serves the burgers before she leaves to go get drinks.
Oh,
she just kind of picks it up with her paw. She just grabs it.
And they're good-looking burgers. They're big
meaty burgers.
Yeah.
But she just picks it up with her paw, just drops it down in front of Max.
And she heads out to get something, and soon as she's out of earshot, what does Jerry say?
Get me out of here. They're killing me.
I can't make this scene anymore. Who's killing him? Like the society?
The whole
shebang.
scene. He can't handle it.
And he's like, what is it? You got something?
I know you got something.
Yeah, I know you got something. Max is like, don't you want to know what it is? He's like, I don't care what it is. I got to get out of here. Right. You think, what's the matter, man? You had this whole little setup going here. That's so funny. And she comes back with the guitar. She comes back with a little acoustic guitar, and that's a wonderful scene. Jerry, Harry Dean Stanton, just starts playing.
What's great is it's a treat because the scene is really natural. You feel you know these people, and they're a couple and whatnot, but you get treated to Harry Dean Stanton singing and playing his guitar. It just reminds me of Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah.
Right away.
Hand Me Down My Walking Cane is the song.
Right. He's a treat to watch.
He's really good. He's nice little finger picking on the guitar, and it's his voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a really interesting shot. I don't even know if it works, but it's kind of interesting. Suddenly it cuts, and it's this crane shot.
Yes.
Pulling up. The lighting's a little different. It's kind of not.
It doesn't quite match.
It doesn't fit in with the rest of the movie.
You're right.
It's the most Hollywood shot of the movie.
It doesn't quite match. But I like the movie so much, I'm gonna let it go.
Well, it's fun in a way because you pull back and you see this kind of suburban setting.
Yeah,
this
you
little
see
scene.
How tiny the backyard is and how big the pool is.
The pool is just squeezed into that yard.
It's the whole backyard, yeah. And then we cut to Max and Jerry in the car at night. They're casing this joint to do this robbery.
It's like kind of like a hotel or apartment building or a motel kind of place, right?
Yes, it looks like a motel. A couple of
and you see
floors.
guys in the window through the shade. You see their shadows going back and around the and they're waiting there.
And you can see there's tension going on.
Yeah,
you get the sense
something's.
It's
a
not
little
like you saw the clock or something, but you get the sense they've been sitting there for a long time.
Right.
And finally, Jerry says, "Man, this is very unprofessional." And I just love the way he puts that.
Yeah, yeah.
And the poker game seems to be breaking up.
And he's like, it's too late. People are leaving. And they're missing. Clearly, they're missing their opportunity.
I love the shot, though. The way it's composed. Yeah. It's this reverse shot on them.
Yeah.
And they're looking forward. But they're kind of out of focus. They're framing it. We got Jerry on the right and Max on the left.
Right.
And they're framing the whole scene. And in the foreground, we can see through the windshield what's in focus, which is basically these guys are coming out, and it's over.
It's kind of ending. And Max still wants to take. He wants to go.
Right.
And Jerry's like, no.
They're waiting. They're waiting for guns to
we
come.
don't know that because then Jerry says, you can't take this without a shotgun. Obviously, you got to cover the room.
Right.
But Max, being Max, he just wants to go. And then we realize what they're waiting for. Suddenly, Manny shows up. And he pulls up in the car, and you can see Max is just, he's done. He's pissed. And he walks right up to the window.
And he's all excuses.
Right.
Oh, I got this bartender. You're not going to believe this. Max does not want to hear this.
No. And he's like, where's the gun? Like, what did you bring? I don't have any guns with me. He's pissed off. Man, he's supposed to bring the shotgun, did not bring it even. Didn't even bring it. Like, you show up late, you should have just brung it, right?
So Max is...
And do you get a sense that Manny didn't even want a part of this? And
absolutely.
That's just he didn't want to be involved.
No, he just let it fizzle out.
Yeah.
And didn't put enough work into it because he just really didn't want to be involved in it. Well, Max was certainly waiting for those guns, and now he looks like a fool.
Yeah.
With Jerry, but also they lost thousands of dollars in the deal.
That was a big job he was counting on. You can hear he was counting on it,
and you see him getting so keyed up. He reminded me of Al Pacino in The Godfather when Kate tells him that she had an abortion,
right?
And you see him get so fired up that he just.
It's almost like steam coming out the ears.
Exactly. He's furious. And then he starts to beat the shit out of him. Right through the window.
Right through the window.
Right through the open window.
Punching him.
Punching him.
Yeah.
And Jerry comes out and says, oh, man, knock it off. They're going to see you over here. What are you crazy?
Right.
So he doesn't want to hear it. He just puts his hands up and is like, get away from me.
Yeah.
But Jerry knows him for a long time and knows how to handle him. So he takes him and he puts him in the car.
Yeah.
And he says, look, just go home.
Yep.
And you could tell he doesn't want to go home. He said, just go home. I'm going to stay with this guy. I'm going to cool him down.
Right.
I want to make sure that you're still on the street. I'm going to cool this guy down, and you just drive home. You hear me?
He's basically protecting the guy's life because they want Max to get him. Yeah.
Exactly. You hear me? You just go home.
Right.
And he's acting kind of like a father at this point. Just, you go home and you be safe and everything's fine. And just before Max pulls away, he goes, turn your lights on.
Yeah.
So we cut to.
This is a great scene.
It's a great scene.
Jerry's basement.
And once again, Harry Dean Stanton. I believe that he knows exactly how to take a gun apart.
Yeah.
How to hone something down. He's trying to make
it's in
this.
a vice.
It's in a vice.
You cut to him and he's in a vice. You see this gun there and he's
just
sawing
working
away.
He's
doing something.
But you totally believe that this guy knows exactly what he's doing, Harry Dean Stanton.
They're clearly working on it. And you don't see exactly what he's doing.
Right. Because you just see this barrel out here, but you don't see the whole gun even attached to it. So you're like...
I thought he was shortening the barrel, but he's not.
Right, sort of shotgun.
Because you still see the sight on the end of it.
Exactly. So I wasn't quite sure what he's doing either. And then you see him take it out of the vice. Yeah. There's no dialogue at all. It's just... What's great is you have this sound going on upstairs. It sounds like kids playing. There's a dog barking. It's all very natural.
Yeah.
Your average Joe father downstairs just tinkering around. But this average Joe father is downstairs. And he's making a gun fit probably under a coat or some sort of thing.
Such a hilarious shot of the two of them.
Because he starts to giggle.
Yeah.
Like they're a couple of bad kids ready to pull a prank.
And he's kind of showing off to Max how this thing tucks under his
fits really
arm.
nice, doesn't it? Huh?
It's like two middle-aged crooks, just like.
But they're like little kids.
I know, but
they
it just seems so weird.
They just burst into laughter, which I thought was great.
He could be like a bus driver or something. He's just like this guy.
Right.
He's got a shotgun.
Right.
That he made to.
And he's very proud of it. Obviously, he's very proud of it. But there's no dialogue.
No.
It's a wonderful scene.
I mean, basically, the point, it's what they do.
Yeah.
That's their job.
And this is what he wants to do.
You could work at a hot dog stand, you could work at a bank. This is what these guys do.
Right.
So
it's like Ralph Cramden in a bowling alley.
There you go. And then we cut to the bank. In this scene...
That's one of the best bank robbing scenes I've ever seen.
Well, I think it's like the ultimate in that... I think it's one of the very early, like, L.A. heist scenes. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a whole slew of them through the 80s and even up to now.
Right, and a lot of people took stuff from that. So we cut to one of the best bank robbery scenes that I've ever seen. And what's amazing about it to me is what balls. Two guys in the middle of the day, no masks.
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman's got a pair of sunglasses on, but no masks.
Right, no masks.
The middle of the day, they walk
in
there.
Overcoats, right?
Just two guys.
Yeah.
And they go up to the security guard, and Harry Dean Stanton taps him on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me, sir, can you look over there?" And Dustin Hoffman puts a gun right in his face.
Right in his face.
And they say, "Get up now." And they drag him into the bank and
here's
throw
the thing,
him on the ground.
Here's the thing. If you're going to do this, you have to be committed 110%. And you can see right away, it's like they're going to control this situation.
That's right.
It's like amazing.
Control's a good word for
Their attitude.
So Jerry, Harry Dean Stanton, starts screaming, "This is a robbery. Everybody get down on the floor." And Max starts going over to the tellers, open the drawer, open the drawer, open the drawer, open the drawer. And Harry Dean Stanton is just screaming orders to everybody in the bank. "Get down on the floor. Get down on the goddamn floor. You looking at me?
Yeah, don't look at me."
And he just scares the hell out of these people.
At one point he goes, "I will blow your face up." I'm like, what? And
don't look at me, goddammit.
And Dustin Hoffman goes around the back where the tellers are, and he's like calmly stepping them away from the drawers. "Open that drawer. Open that drawer. You open that drawer."
It's all very calm.
It's all about control.
The person who's really controlling this scene is Harry Dean Stanton but just intimidating the shit out of all these people. One guy with a shotgun having an eyeball all these other people.
Yeah.
And Dustin Hoffman is just grabbing and going.
He's grabbing and going. Drawer to drawer. Very methodical.
And Harry Dean Stanton looks at his watch and he goes, "Okay, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And they're going down the line. And Max is putting cash in, okay, 5 seconds. More cash in the bags. And finally says, "Okay, that's it, let's go." And once again, just like in the typing scene, he doesn't stop.
He can't help himself.
He just keeps going.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. We're ready. Let's go.
Right.
Let's go. And he
keeps grabbing.
And he keeps grabbing.
Max keeps grabbing cash.
Let's go. Let's go now. Let's hit it. Let's go.
Yep.
And he still won't go. Finally grabs one or two more handfuls, and they go out of there. And what I love is when they exit the bank, Harry Dean Stanton goes, "How was I?" And Dustin Hoffman says, "You scared the shit out of me."
And they're laughing it
They're
up.
like, once again, just like the basement scene, they are laughing their asses off. And they're like a couple of kids who just pulled a really big prank.
And you see them in the car. They're driving.
Yeah.
And Max is like looking through the bag. And Jerry's like, how much we get? How much we get in the car? And he's looking through the cash. But he says at one point, from now on, when I say we got to go, we got to go. That's it. You know, we got to go.
We go.
Like, come on, we're professionals. This is how it's done. They know how long it's going to take the cops to get there. You know, the alarm goes off. They have a certain amount of time they have to get out of there.
And I love how they're playing around with the money. Dustin Hoffman's like picking it up, like, look what I got, look what I got. And he goes,
Which
you
is
see this?
weird because they're in this car driving. People could be driving by. You see this,
but they don't care. They're just having too much fun.
Just,
and Dustin Hoffman says, "You see this? $8,000. I should dock you pay. You were going to make me lose $8,000. I got."
Great scene. And I have to say, very tense, as you said.
Oh my God!
The way it builds, and you got Harry Dean Stanton calling off that clock.
Yep.
It's just clockwork. It just really works really nice, and it builds the tension.
Then there's a scene where Max is at Jerry's business. And he's trying to talk him into doing another job. And, you know, he's kind of hemming and hawing, Jerry is. And Dustin Hoffman says, "You're a thief, man. Why don't you be a thief?"
Yeah.
And then he says, "You like that bank? Do you feel good doing that bank, holding that shotgun?" And you see Harry Dean Stanton kind of smiling. But then you almost see him kind of glaze over a little bit. And it's kind of like a drug addict.
Yeah.
You can see that he really, Max is manipulating him.
Yeah.
Because he knows that Jerry gets off on this.
He's addicted.
So he's going to talk this guy into this thing, and that's that. And he knows what buttons to push.
So suddenly Max is showing Jerry the plan of the jewelry. He's got it all drawn out.
Right.
And he's got a map of the area around it. These, again, they're professionals. And Jerry's hemming and hawing. He's like, I don't know, Max. Beverly Hills is rough. You know, they've got all these cops there. You know, it's high-end stuff. And then it's the day of the job.
And goofy Gary Busey drives up with this piece of crap station wagon, right?
Yeah.
And Harry Dean Stanton, Jerry, is totally freaked out.
Yeah.
But you can tell on Jerry's face, he's not cool with this at all.
No.
He's really
And Willie's.
He's really tense about it.
And Willie looks very nervous.
Right.
He looks totally nervous. He's like a little jumpy and
The interesting thing, he's been like a puppy dog. Can you take me with you next time, Max?
Yeah.
Can you take me with you next time, Max? But he's not cut out for this sort of thing.
So they pull in, and Max is like, he's talking to Willie. You see that door there? We're going to come out of there in a couple of minutes. Like, you stay here. He goes, okay, Max, okay. He said he wants our help. Yeah. Okay, Max, do I keep the car running? Like,
if I was Jerry, I would have walked away right then and there. And it's making you so tense. That's how well directed and acted this is. You feel so tense in this situation because you're thinking, my God, that's the guy who's going to do the getaway car?
oh, my God.
It's just a dopey kid.
You cut in there. Jerry and Max are approaching Julie's store. They walked around to the front of the store. Mm-hmm. And they're walking up the street. It's kind of busy. And Max is like, how's the vibe? And Jerry's like, it's all right. There's lots of people. It's a busy street. And just as they're walking through the door, Max smiling. He's in his element. He looks at Jerry. He's like, I'd kiss you, but you're too ugly. Like walking into a robbery.
Then Dustin Hoffman walks up along the jewelry cases because he knows what the place
So
looks
we're
like.
in the store. The two guys are walking in. They kind
Harry
of
Dean Stanton,
split up.
which is pretty interesting. Harry Dean Stanton's in the front of the place.
Yeah.
He's got gloves on.
Work gloves.
Yeah.
They're not even leather gloves. They're like these like
heavy
leather,
work gloves.
I mean,
Right.
heavy like work gloves.
Exactly.
It's hilarious.
And then Max walks down along the cases. He puts the case down on a
very
little
calmly.
chair.
Yeah.
Very calmly.
At the end of the case, yeah.
He takes out gloves, the work gloves like Harry Dean Stanton has, and he takes out a hammer. And this woman goes, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" And then he takes this small sledgehammer type thing, and he goes, bang, bang, smash, smash, and people are just jumping back. Oh my God, this elderly woman was just buying some piece of jewelry or something, and she's all ready to go, and then she jumps back in horror. And Dustin Hoffman is smashing.
He's going down the line of counters,
right?
Like just smashing
all the glass,
every glass,
smashing all the glass. And Harry Dean Stanton is smashing the glass in the front, and he catches somebody looking at him. He says, "Turn around right now."
Yeah,
he's not as forceful as he had to be in the bank,
right?
Because he had to cover so much more area.
Yeah.
And then he starts working his way back, and he's grabbing stuff. Max is grabbing stuff.
Jerry automatically starts going 1 minute. He starts at 1 minute.
Well, what cracked me up about this, previously, Jerry just had his watch.
Yeah.
But now he wants to keep total track of what the time is. So he has this huge stopwatch hanging around his neck. He looks like Flava Flav. So
that's great.
So he's right, like you said, he starts calling out the time.
So he starts at 1 minute.
And Max is going like a bat out of hell.
Now, what's interesting, Max has these work gloves on and goggles.
Yes.
He puts goggles on.
Yes.
And he has to pick through all this thick glass
all this
to
broken
find
glass.
the jewelry.
But he's got the gloves on, so he's just grabbing stuff, probably throwing glass in there too, but grabbing a piece,
But he is looking through.
He wants to make sure he gets every damn piece out of there.
And he's being very meticulous, going down each counter, pulling out jewelry. Max doesn't even look up. If you notice,
keeps going.
He's like staring down in these counters.
But that's another interesting thing. That's another interesting thing about the scene too. Is in the bank scene, it's all wide angle.
Yeah,
you know, it's
it's
covering the space that bank is.
Yeah.
But in this jewelry store, it's more close-ups, especially from below.
There's a low angle
like,
of Max.
Like the case is POV.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And he's looking right down into the camera, and it's really compact to get you a sense of what these guys are doing and how they're thinking and what their energy is at this point.
But also, this jewelry is expensive. They were like $10,000, $20,000 pieces.
$130,000 for a watch.
He's grabbing this stuff.
And he's moving.
And of course, time runs out. Jerry's like 20 seconds.
And Dustin Hoffman goes, "We got time." He says, "Time's up. Let's go. There was a piece here. There was another piece here. I don't believe this."
Well, it's interesting. I thought Max was almost like, was he looking for this last piece for the girl? Was he trying to find some? He just kept going at this glass.
He was doggedly determined to have it.
But like when you look down, when the camera reverses and you look into the case, it looks like it's diamonds, but it's all broken glass. You could hardly see the jewelry. He's like wallowing
and he's
through
ignoring Harry Dean Stanton. Harry Dean Stanton says, "You're a child. You act like a 2-year-old child." It's almost like an old married couple or something. They're bickering between each other.
But you have to know. And it's Beverly Hills. There's got to be thousands of cops out there. And there's an alarm going.
The alarm's been going for 2 minutes.
Yeah, so you have to get out of there. It's like, and Max just won't give up.
He takes his fist. Now, this is hard glass, and they must have had the proper glass for it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Dustin Hoffman really hurt his hand because he pounds in the glass, doesn't budge.
Yeah.
Pounds again, doesn't budge. Pounds and pounds and pounds. He's going to pound through that glass.
And at that point, I thought maybe he's going for that watch for Jenny.
Right. But it's typical Dustin Hoffman intensity. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he really hurt his hand.
Yeah.
In fact, I heard this story years ago about him and Ulu Grosbard. And Ulu Grosbard stopped in the middle of a scene and said to Dustin Hoffman, "Look, what's more important, our friendship or the movie?"
Yeah.
And Dustin Hoffman didn't answer. So that says something.
So we get to the end of the time. Jerry... He comes and tries to pull Max away. And Max, his arm goes up. His arm just shot up like, get
exactly.
back. Don't touch me.
And Harry Dean Stanton goes, "That's it.
Yeah.
That's the last goddamn time I'm working with you."
And what's funny is as Max is finally wrapping up, he can't help himself. He grabs a woman, grabs her arm and pulls her ring. What do you got there? He's just pulling her rings off.
She won't give it up, which I think is kind of crazy.
Cut to outside in the alley. They come out the door.
Getaway car's gone.
Empty parking spot. It's the most chilling scene.
But Harry Dean Stanton, totally incredulous, just laughs. His expression is like, what the hell is this? You got to be kidding me.
You
got to be kidding me.
He can't believe it. But Max finally says, we got to run.
Right.
Get rid of the shotgun.
Right.
Because now we're on foot. You're in the middle of frickin' Beverly Hills. And I got to say, it's like, let's go. So they have to suddenly get out of here. And
Right.
you hear sirens going off, and they cut through these alleys. So now they're going to go from block to block through these alleys between buildings.
And you hear the police cars.
They're everywhere. And you see them, they get through to the next street, and then they get to this alley, and Max starts to climb this fence.
Right.
And a cop car.
He throws the bag over.
He throws the bag over the
He
fence.
jumps over the fence.
But you see that down the alley, the cop car's about to go past, and it sees them.
Right. Cuts
Pulls
back.
comes
Harry
up the
Dean
alley.
Stanton didn't get over the fence yet, though.
He's in the alley.
Right.
Why, to God, he just takes a shot at the police car, Harry
Right.
Dean Stanton.
Right.
I'm going, why are you doing that? Now you're just elevating this thing, right? Like, what? You take a shot at a police car?
Well, he doesn't want to get caught. That's as
Of
simple
course,
as that. Just
but-
doesn't want to get caught. And that's all I think he's thinking of at this point.
You're like turning this situation from bad to worse, though. As soon as you shoot, forget it.
Have you ever robbed a jewelry store, John?
No, but if I did and a cop came at me,
You won't
I'm like,
shoot at him. We got that. got that
officer,
point.
sir, thank you very much. Can you open the back door for me? Here's my hands.
So Harry Dean Stanton shoots at the cop. He tries to make it over the fence. He shoots back again. The cop shoots him.
Well, it's interesting. You see, suddenly we're on Max's side of the fence in the
Right.
yard, and Max is like on the ground. And he looks up, and we see Harry Dean Stanton coming over the fence, and he turns around and shoots.
Right.
And they kind of shoot, him and the cop kind of shoot simultaneously.
Yes.
almost.
So the cop shoots Harry Dean Stanton. Harry Dean Stanton falls down, and Max gets up and just shoots the hell out of whatever he can get at the cop. Shoots through the fence, shoots
Through
over
the
the
fence,
fence,
yeah.
and then we don't hear anything from the cop. So
And
we gather that the cop is.
It's a really
down.
cool shot. We're on the ground now with Max. He's like low, he's got to crawl to Jerry. And he's looking at that fence, too, because you don't know what's going to come over it. And he gets to Jerry, and it's a really sad scene.
And Harry Dean Stanton is once again so good. He can convey so much stuff on his face. He's lying there, and he's just, you could see on his face.
Well, you can tell he's like in shock.
Right.
And it's very convincing. And Max, they don't even say a word. They just look at each other. You know what I mean? It's just like, what are you going to do?
Max crawls closer to him, and then he just dies.
Yeah, really sad. And then Max just grabs the bag, not even says a word, just heads off.
But it's an interesting scene afterwards because he just walks through the back of somebody's yard. He grabs a towel off of the line.
Right.
And he's got to get rid of this bag because that's like a blinking beacon. saying,
Exactly.
Look what I got
Yeah.
here. So he walks over to his garbage cans and he just puts this towel he grabbed off of somebody's line and he starts putting the jewelry into this towel and wrap it up.
I was confused at first, like, what's he doing? And then I realized, oh, he's getting rid of the bag, right,
What's
as you said.
interesting is there are a couple different pieces that fall, and he just brushes them off. They don't mean anything anymore. A friend of his, a partner, a compatriot, just died, and it was because of him.
Well,
So he
that's
doesn't
an
really
interesting
care.
thing about this part of the movie with Max and Jerry. Like, Max is always pushing the limits,
Right.
and he gets them in trouble. It's his fault from the get-go for even hiring Willie.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this guy's totally unreliable. We all see that. But he's got to get this job going. So he just picks Willie.
Max is all energy.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes no brains. He's the catalyst to move these things along. And Jerry is the smarter guy because he goes, all right, we do it this way, do it this way, do it this way.
Yeah, you got
And
to stick to the
they make an
plan.
agreement, but it's the same thing happens over and over and
Yeah.
over again.
And he makes his way back to Jenny's employment agency. And he just
gotta go
walks
now.
in there.
We gotta go now.
We got to go. And she's like, huh? And they're driving. And she's ready. I mean, she's all in, I guess, you know? And they kind of don't really talk much in the car. And he suddenly pulls over.
He says, I got to pick up some money from a friend.
He just pulls over, and it's some suburban street. And then he cuts through an alley through to Willie's house. So he's coming through the back way almost.
Right.
And he makes his way into the house.
And he
Yeah.
calls Willie.
Yeah.
Willie. And you could just see he's pissed as hell. And he finds him in the back in the garage.
Cowering. He knows Max is going to be looking for him.
Right.
And he corners Willie, and Willie's like, Max is like, what happened? And Willie's like, the alarm, it was going for 5 minutes.
And what's interesting about this scene, too, is it's not some dark alleyway. It's not some dark room, and there's going to be this tension-filled fight scene or something. It's bright, sunny day with the birds chirping.
Open garage door.
Totally natural, totally peaceful scene.
Yeah.
And Max is fidgeting with something behind his back.
But he's grilling Willie, though. Like,
Absolutely.
What did you do? And Willie's like, the alarm was going off for 5 minutes, and Max is like, I would have been there. And Willie's just apologizing. You can tell he's totally scared. And
you
Max
really feel sorry for this big lummox.
Yeah.
You really do.
He is a big lummox.
He is. That's not going to cut it with Max, especially that, Jerry's been killed because of this situation. Yeah. So he says, all right, you know what? You did the best you could, right?
Right.
You did the best you could. Come on.
He actually says, I shouldn't have asked you to do it. You couldn't handle it.
Give me a big old bear hug. So he goes in and gives him a big old bear hug. And out from behind his back, he pulls the gun and shoots him right in the belly.
Yeah. And I have to say, you never saw this gun because it was tucked. I didn't see the gun.
Behind his back.
It was just under his shirt. So we never even saw it.
But he's fidgeting.
Yeah.
And it's very tense, the whole thing leading up to this. And the whole scene is tense inside the garage. But he shoots him right in the belly, and then he shoots him again.
Yeah. Now, I just have to say, was this Willie's fault? This wasn't Willie's fault. No, seriously.
It's Max's fault.
It's Max's fault that
Absolutely.
They were in that jewelry store so long. Right. And if you were Willie, you would have pulled away because you would have imagined they got caught or something.
So then they get back to the car, and he just starts driving.
They're driving on the highway, and we hear on the radio report of the jewelry robbery. And it's almost like you could see on her face, she's not up for this. It's like, suddenly it all comes crashing down, because as soon as she hears about this on the radio, people are dead, how serious this is, it's not make-believe. You know what I mean? It's not. It
all comes crashing down on her because she really feels the reality of this and how horrible the reality of it is. Right. No matter if she feels affection for this guy or not. Yeah. This guy just did something, really awful.
And next is the roadside diner.
Right. So they pull in there. There's a gas station and there's a little,
it's like
cafe,
out in the middle
diner,
of the desert or something.
Right. And it's a cheesy piece of music. I'm sorry. really bugged with this. This one sounded like a ripoff of Dylan and the band doing "You Angel You," like an instrumental version of that. That's what it sounded like.
You mean Dylan and the band weren't on a little stage in the back of the thing there?
No band.
No,
but it was just cheesy.
Okay.
There was a cheesy version of it stuck in there, and to me, this is a really terrific scene because you see that they can't go any further with this thing.
Right.
That it's something's going to have to give on this. He's going to have to do something and get out of there. And it's a tension-filled scene, but I kept getting taken out of the scene with this cheesy ripoff of "You Angel You."
But they get in there and they sit at this window seat, and it's a great setting. I have to say,
the setting's great.
You don't see these diners anymore. It's actually gas station diner because there's a pump out front.
Right.
And you got the classic middle-aged waitress.
Right.
Her name's probably Flo. Who knows? Max is, he asks the waitress, like, is there a bus that comes by here, back to L.A.? And then Jenny realizes what he's doing.
I'm not going with you. And he says no.
No.
So he gets up, goes to the car, and is going to drive away. And she comes out afterwards and says, I forgot my sweater.
Yeah.
And then she says to him, can I go with you? And he says no. And she says, why? And he goes, because I'm going to get caught. And it's just a wide shot of him driving down the road.
It's a very long road. It's like the classic endless road into the desert.
In the desert, right? Yeah. Exactly. I love the as you're watching him drive down the road in this wide shot down this desert road. Then they have these mug shots. There are these 3 different mug shots, and we see
they just appear on the screen.
Right. We see Max Dembo basically how he looks now, even more scruff to his beard, which is when he just got caught.
Like present-day Max, yeah.
Just got caught. And then we go further back, and he looks like a younger Max, clean cut. He almost looks like, Benjamin Braddock with a little bit longer hair.
Yeah, he's like maybe 30 or whatever. Yeah,
and then it goes all the way back, and he looks like he's about
15, 16?
Because 15, 16 in that one thing.
Yeah.
And, a very kind of young, goofy-looking Dustin Hoffman, and it's just beautiful because that's his whole life right there.
I've always remembered this scene, and what I really love about it is you have this whole movie about this guy who comes out of prison, tries to go straight, goes back into the life, and then at the very end, those 3 shots just tell his whole life story.
Absolutely.
He is just a career criminal from the beginning.
It's beautiful.
It's almost like a Greek tragedy, right? Like his fate has been set. This is, I have to say, it's one of my favorite Dustin Hoffman.
Absolutely. One of the best performances he's ever done.
Yeah.
And it's really, really intense, and he just plays it to the hilt. Really, really great stuff.
Great movie, straight time. Well, that's all the time we have this week.
We'd like to thank our friend Glenn Ornowitz for his music.
And of course, our listeners for tuning in.
So join us next week for another episode of
Film Detour.
If you like our show, please recommend us to your friends. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, and leave a review.
Go to our website at filmdetour.libsyn.com to leave comments or email us with questions. That's filmdetour.libsyn.com. You can also visit us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And you can also find us on YouTube.